Once you've got your dataset open, you'll be taken to this screen. This is the default view in SPSS, and there are two windows that you can switch between here, data view and variable view. The window that you're looking at here is variable view. If you want to inspect the data grid, you can click into data view here, and here we see our dataset laid out with the columns with the variable names as column headers and each row corresponding to an individual case. In this case, each line represents one respondent's complete set of answers, and each of these columns represents a variable. Where we set up the variable properties then is in variable view. You see here for the European Social Survey, these are already predefined, but if you were setting up your own data set, if you had collected your own survey data, then this is the area in which you will be setting up all of your individual variables. As it is for this course, most of you are going to be working with secondary data sets, so this is where we inspect the properties of our variables. Now, the first thing to notice is that as we move down the name column, as we move down the variable names here in variable view, we see name, ESS, round, addition. You will see that these follow the same order as the column headers in variable view, name, ESS, round, addition, and so on. Variable names then are shorthand names that we give to identify the variables in the various windows within SPSS. These are the names that also serve as column headers. And the reason they're so short is because if they were any longer, then we couldn't simultaneously display multiple columns, but also it would become very difficult when we go on to do analyses later on to identify the variables easily and quickly if those names were too long or had too many characters in them. So the most important, I'm going to draw your attention to the most important columns here. Obviously, variable name is important because we will principally identify variables later on for analysis by using their names. And the variable names are generally also how the variables are linked in the codebook to the SPSS dataset. Type is important, so you will see principally two types listed down here, string and numeric. String variables are generally variables where results are entered in the form of text. So in this case, if we look down here through name, you'll see that we've got a combination of letters and numbers. But the most common one you'll find is numeric. And numeric is simply where the respondent's score or answer is entered as a number. So if we look over here into this PPL TRST variable, how much do you believe that people can be trusted? We see that the respondent's level of trust is simply given a number from 0, no trust at all, to 10, complete trust. The label column is important, and I'm going to just expand this column for a minute so you can see this. The label column is where you will find the longer name of the variable. So while we have the variable names over here, the label then is a slightly longer identifier that tells you a little bit more about the content of the variable. So this PPL-TRST variable here, we see that it corresponds to the question, most people can be trusted or you can't be too careful. So by using the labels then, we can browse down through these and we can get a clearer sense of what the question is actually, or what the variable is actually referring to. Incidentally, if we want to find any particular variable within this list, generally we can find its position by looking at the codebook. We can also click into the label field, and by hitting Control F, we can also search by keyword. So if we were looking for a variable on education, we could type the keyword education, and then by clicking search and find, it will take us through all variable labels with the word education in it. The next thing we need to look at is the variable labels. And if you remember back to what I said about level of measurement, what we typically do with a nominal or an ordinal variable is we translate the variable labels, that would be the options that the respondent gets in their question, into numbers. So we see here we have this variable on line 13, how interested are you in politics? And if you click in here, and you'll see this quite a lot in SPSS, if we left click in this field here, values, you'll see these little three dots appearing to the right. In SPSS, when this appears, if we click on the three dots, it generally refers to something we can click to get an expanded menu. So if we click in here, we see it takes us to the value label screen. And here we see that for this variable, how interested are you in politics, the respondent has 4 principal options: 1 very interested, 2 quite interested, 3 hardly interested, 4 not at all interested, and then 7, 8 and 9 are refusal, don't know, and no answer respectively. We also need to be able to code for missing values. There are many reasons why data might be missing. As you'll see here, there's also some additional options that are given to respondents. On most questions, they can refuse to answer it. They can say they don't know, either they don't have the knowledge, or the question or the property in question doesn't refer to them. they haven't done the action, or they don't possess the good in the case of deprivation questions and so on. Or the data can simply be missing for other reasons, errors in entry or oversight and things like that. So we need to designate some of these as missing. We need a code, first of all, to identify data as what we might call truly missing. So data that are missing because of transfer errors, or we simply forgotten to record an answer. But also, when we're analyzing data, there are certain categories we might not want to include. So there are reasons why we might want to examine those people who refuse the question. For example, generally speaking, for this module at least, we will be excluding those answers. So you see here in the missing field, we have scores 7, 8 and 9 designated as missing. And again, you'll see if we click into the missing field for any of these, we get this 3-dot expansion option that opens up another menu that shows us that we have 3 current missing values, 7, 8 and 9. So anytime SPSS encounters a score of 7, 8 and 9 over here in the data grid, it will interpret these answers as missing, and it will exclude them from the calculation of certain statistics and exclude them from certain procedures. The level of measurement is given over here in this column, and SPSS works with 3 principal levels of measurement. Now, most textbooks will refer to 4. They'll refer to the nominal, ordinal, interval and scale level, but as I said in class, the distinction between the interval and the scale levels for our purposes is more or less trivial. So SPSS works with nominal, ordinal and scale. Nominal are variables where the categories have no inherent rank order. They're just different qualities or different properties. Ordinal is questions where the answers do have a hierarchy, like strongly agree, disagree, very interested, not at all interested. And then scale variables are what we might call true numbers. So these are things like years of education, euros of income, years of age, and so on. You'll notice that some of these will need to be changed and adjusted, because in this case, even though the interest in politics question is an ordinal variable, it's got a rank order. It's an attitudinal question, or it's an interest, sorry, it's measuring the respondent's level of interest. We need to set this up over here in the measure field as an ordinal variable. And in version 26 of SPSS, it also includes 3 additional columns that allow you to index this variable against its location in the codebook. So we see here that this is location B1. The full text of the question is accessible by double clicking, or you can click on this expanding 3 dots field, and you can see here that it gives us a more expanded version of the question here.